right in the middle of London. Gonna go on a tour of the London Blitz. Should be fun. Well, I wouldn't want to have been in the London Blitz, but it could be fun to learn about. My kind of thing. History. Let's not repeat it. Waiting for a car, Prius to be exact, MX65, 9 minutes. Okay, as you can see, I'm officially at the Blackfriars Pub. It is, I don't know, 10:25. Haven't seen a tour guide yet, but should be here soon, I hope. Or I'll have to do it myself. I don't think that's gonna happen.
Quite often there is a modern building that is a bomb site too, but this is more specifically for the West Coast, California. But the very tall, chunky stone building is the Faraday building, and that was the very first telephone exchange in the United Kingdom. Telephone numbers were 1, 2, 3, 4. They're separate individual telephone numbers. So Selfridge's department store on Oxford Street had the telephone number 1 because Harry Gordon Selfridge was an American.
Oh,
number 1.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's not the American
me.
bit. That's not the West Coast American bit. No. Just have a look here because you got the camera on. You might as well. But do you see? This is all about you. Do you see the flags on the shorter white stone building?
yes.
Yes. That is the Church of Scientology.
Oh, great.
That's yours, right?
Not mine.
No, oh, okay. I don't know what.
No.
I don't know West Coast Americans go to
No.
the Church of Scientology, no? No, I must have read the memo wrong.
Yeah, you did.
Now, speaking of... So this is where that decision was made. Anyway, it's called Playhouse Yard today. So you'll see name plaques here. And this is because William Shakespeare took over the now abandoned and empty and available Blackfriars Priory in 1597, turned it into a theatre, opened it, but sort of forgot that his neighbours were the Puritans. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with the Puritans. Protestant, very hard-working, very religious, but no fun. The Puritans believed in 2 things: reading the Bible and making money. And they didn't allow William Shakespeare to open his theatre in this location. So as a result, he had to rent it out to St. Paul's Cathedral for their choir practice, so the choir boys would practice in it. And for 10 years he did that, but then in 1608 he managed to get permission to open up the building, and The Tempest, A Winter's Tale, Cymbeline, Pericles would have been first produced here. The Globe, which was opened in 1599, is a response to the fact that this was not allowed to open. Let's go in and have a look. I shall do my monologue. quick history lesson on the Second World War. Um, so here's the deal. This graveyard that you're in remained in operation until the 1850s. However, the church had been destroyed in the Great Fire of London of 1666. This is why we still have gravestones and a reference to this church. Anyway, so 1st of September 1939, Hitler invades Poland. Hitler was told not to invade Poland by Britain and France. So on the 3rd of September 1939, Britain and France declares war on Germany. So the whole reason I'm doing what I'm about to tell you is just to give you the idea of the sequence of events that lead up to the 29th of December and understand why it's happening. So Hitler's going to be very busy taking over Europe. So he has to start with Poland. He's already taken over Czechoslovakia. Austria has already been annexed. These things have already happened. And then he's going to go through Scandinavian countries, and then he's going to come down through the Netherlands, and all of that will be the winter of 39-40. And then we get into spring, and we now have springtime for Hitler and Germany, because it is the invasion of France, the 10th of May, 1940. 10th of May 1940 is also the very first day that Winston Churchill took up his position as Prime Minister. And it is not a coincidence. Everything has just gone down the toilet, and now they have a government of national unity where the Socialists and the Conservatives have come together. Churchill is now going to be Prime Minister, and the head of the Socialists are going to manage everything on the island, as in housing and things like that. So here's the deal. British troops are in northern France and Belgium. French troops are in northern France and Belgium. And Belgian troops are in northern France and Belgium. And they're going to do a rerun of the First World War. But because of the Treaty of Versailles, Germany could only have set quantities of munitions. So what they did is they built the very best, but in small numbers. And their tactic was blitzkrieg, so everything was mechanized. You're in a truck, you're in a tank, you're in an airplane. There's not much in the way of marching, but you don't do a head-on clash, because you will lose. So what you do is you find a weak point, and the weak point was the Ardennes region. Now the reason nobody's looking at the Ardennes region, it's a valley. And if you're an invading army, you do not want to go through a valley because you're a sitting duck. But because blitzkrieg was so accelerated, the Germans went, don't worry about it, we'll be out the valley before anybody realizes what's going on. So the Germans turn up and go, oh, hello everybody, we're here now. So the French give up and the British go, oh wait, look at that now. We've got a luncheon appointment in Dunkirk, so we're off. So the entire British army now heads towards northern France, to the beaches of Dunkirk, only to discover that how are they going to get big boats out in the sea? So Winston Churchill gets on the radio and goes, Britain, have you got a boat? And those boats, tiny little boats, came over to the beaches of Dunkirk, transported troops out to the bigger boats, and in some cases took them all the way back. But the reality is this 10-day operation of evacuation resulted in 340,000 British troops and French troops being evacuated off the beaches of Dunkirk and returned to Britain. The reason this was important is because it was the entire British army. So if Germany surrounded them and they couldn't get out, there was no British army. They left all the equipment behind. But don't worry, because the Germans were excellent at recycling. So they just turned it all into German equipment. But the reality is, France falls. Spain is under fascist control. Italy is under fascist control. Everything in Western Europe except Britain is under fascist control of one colour or another. So the next thing to do is the invasion of Britain on the 10th of July 1940. It is called Operation Sea Lion. It is called the Battle of Britain from a British perspective. And what's happening now is the actual attack on the island. In 43 AD, Claudius puts 4 legions of Romans, so we're talking over 100,000 people, land into Britain in the summertime and effectively take over. The Normans, 1066, do exactly the same thing. There's a 1,000-year gap. Another 1,000 years elapses and it's now 1940. It's the Germans' turn, but they're starting in July, halfway through the summer. Why is the summer so important? You can't invade the island in the wintertime because the sea doesn't allow you safely to transport troops into the island. Britain knows that if they survive till September, they will be okay. Germany knows that they have to get in and destroy every aeroplane in the sky, every aeroplane on the ground, every airfield, every fuel depot, every manufacturing facility making anything to do with an airplane. And then you've got air superiority, and then steal a load of boats off the Dutch and do a sea invasion with troops in it. Take over London, you've won the war. So, the Britain has developed radar, put it everywhere on the island. It is new technology, and this is going to give an early warning for those advancing airplanes. The Germans are prepared by training 800 pilots a month and building up the best air force in Europe. Britain has the biggest empire in the world, so spends all its money on boats, so doesn't have any money left over for airplanes. So with that, they have to try and defend the nation with the Hawker Hurricane. You might have heard of the Spitfire. Now that airplane is made from aluminium. Aluminum, you're welcome. But the reality is it comes from Canada. We don't have any. The submarines are sinking it, so it's in the North Atlantic at the bottom of the sea. So there's a national shortage of aluminium, so they can't build large numbers of Spitfires. But the Hawker Hurricane is made of wood and fabric. And yeah, you do not need to be an aeronautical engineer to understand that that's an inferior product. Next problem is there's no pilots, so they have to come up with a 6-week training program for pilots. Yep, you've never seen an airplane, and the next thing is 6 weeks later, you are flying in war. So the odds are against Britain. Anyway, this is how it works. Radar picks up a signal, it goes beep. They don't know what it is, they just know it's over there. So you get on the telephone and ring Alan. Hello, Alan. Yes, Roger here. Listen, we've just got a beep in your area. Any possibility you can get your binoculars out and tell us what it is? So Alan, with his binoculars, waits until he sees airplanes. Once he sees the airplanes, he has a visual confirmation back on the telephone. Hello, Roger. Yes, Alan here. This is 311 of Home Messerschmitt. So that information goes to a big map, and they can see where all the airplanes are crossing the coast. Then they ring up the airfields in those locations, telling them to intercept those airplanes and shoot them out of the sky. Now, here's the deal. You've got 4 airplanes, the Hawker Hurricanes, with pilots who have 6 weeks training. They just race straight up, spray as many bullets into the sky as possible. Their job is to not die. Stay in formation, save each other's lives if need be, and the focus is save yourself. Because all you're going to do is run out of bullets in 30 seconds, and then you're going to be coming back down to refuel and reload, to do that again, and again, and again, and again, and again. And the longer you survive, the more efficient it is, because you have to train another pilot, and that takes 6 weeks to train another pilot if you die. This works. It slows everything down from the Luftwaffe's perspective of getting air superiority. Until that happens, they can't do the sea invasion. So by the 24th of August, an accident occurs. Hitler made one request during the Battle of Britain: do not bomb London. Churchill will retaliate, and Hitler knows that they have just converted the Wellington bomber into a long-distance bomber. But they can only fly to Berlin in the summer as long as there's no wind, because you literally fly directly over to Berlin, which is as far east as you can possibly go, and then you have to turn around and fly all the way back to this country, and you're on enemy territory the entire journey. So here's the reason why he did this: because he had bragged and bragged, and everybody had bragged that Berlin would never be targeted. So he didn't want this to happen. On the 24th of August, there are bombers flying east of London, and they are attacking Chatham and Rochester, which is industrialized, but it's way east of London. Over 100 planes are flying in over this area. Cloud cover is blocking the view. They just start dropping bombs through the clouds, but 12 aeroplanes are under heavy attack from the RAF, get lost, and then decide in a panic, we're getting rid of these bombs. They flew over Chatham and Rochester, and we're now in the suburbs of London. They successfully, accidentally bombed London. So with that, on the 25th of August 1940, the very first air raid from mainland Britain to Berlin took off. Over 100 airplanes fly straight over to Berlin. About 91 are actually heading towards Berlin. The rest are acting as decoys. When they get to Berlin, it is dark. It is at high altitude because they're going to be shot at every inch of the way. 10 airplanes are shot down on the way to Berlin. When they get there, they take out the Siemensstadt in electricity power station, and they are to take out the Tempelhof International Airport. When they got there, they couldn't see a damn thing because there was cloud cover everywhere. They were using navigational charts, and it was their first long-distance air raid. So they successfully missed all their targets, but killed the elephant in Berlin Zoo. I know it's sad. Don't worry, the elephant was a Nazi, so remember that. Probably a racist too. But the point is, they flew back, and then they did it again and again. So about 4 air raids over the subsequent nights, missing targets each time. Questions were raised. What's the point if you're not hitting the targets? And as Churchill reminded the nation, they're not getting an ounce of sleep at night. And that's what he wanted to do. This was driving Hitler mad. So on the 3rd of September 1940, he delivers a speech, and Hitler went on about his retaliation against Britain for their retaliation for the stuff that Germany was already doing. That's how the speech was. Talk about double speak. He was very animated. Yes! You know. But the point is, that speech leads to the Blitz. On the 7th of September 1940, over 1,000 airplanes take to the skies, 350 bombers, everything else in fighter escort, fly into Britain and start bombing the crap out of London. So, this is a beautiful sunny day, similar to today. And what we have here is the airplanes flying up the Thames. Can I just point out, crystal clear. So they will not have a problem finding the target and bombing it. There is no satellite. There is no weather forecasting. You can also tell by the width of the street, because it's a warehouse and you want to get a truck up here. You can't get a truck down there, a little narrow one perhaps, but that was because it was designed in the time of the horse and cart. So that's why you have narrow alleyways. So now just imagine all these narrow alleyways throughout the city of London, and all you got to do is set fire to one building, that'll spread to the next, that'll spread to the next, and just keep setting fire. So even in peacetime, this place is a bit of a fire trap. And what the Luftwaffe are going to do is that, by the way, obviously, is a bomb site destroyed by the Luftwaffe.
Right.
This building has since been destroyed by hipsters. What we have here is a picture of Great Tower Street. So if you're at the Tower of London and you're walking away from the tower is behind you, you will see the home drawn and quartered pub on the corner, and then you'll see modern office buildings across the street from it. This is why. The 29th of December 1940 is the first Sunday after Christmas. So it's Sunday, so the whole place is closed anyway. So there's nobody here except for the residents, the 15,000 people. So all these warehouses will have security, 1 or 2 people like that, but that's it. So the Luftwaffe know that this place is empty. Why is that important? Because what you don't want is people putting out the fire that you're spending an enormous amount of money to set. The other problem is everybody's on Christmas holidays, so guess where the firefighters are? They're in the pub. So they all get the call to come straight in. That is 2 firefighters dealing with the entire street. So there's not going to be the personnel available, and this is all part of the plan. So I'm going to use this as a visual aid. I want to tell a story about an incident in Fleet Street. There's a little alleyway coming off Fleet Street called Shoe Lane, but it looked like this. And if you go there today, the whole place is being redeveloped because obviously the Luftwaffe made it available for redevelopment in the 1940s. But now they're rebuilding it. But the point is, there were 2 firefighters on the 29th. A guy called Leonard Rossman holding onto the back end of the hose, similar to this. William Sanson on the front. 2 men holding onto the hose. Men held onto hoses. Put this into perspective, women did everything else in the fire service. But the men had to hold on to it because you need 2 of them to hold on to the high pressure hose because of the nature of the high pressure. And none of these people are going to the gym because everybody's on a government enforced diet because submarines are sinking all the food coming into the country. So we're talking about wiry firemen here doing this job. Anyway, they're there for 3 hours on their own in Shoe Lane, pumping water. A fire officer comes racing around the corner. He's got another guy with him. The other guy's name is called William. He's told to jump in and swap out with Rossman because Rossman's more experienced, and he wants Rossman to join him to bring in another hose. They got to the end of the alleyway and the building collapsed. So William Sanson was able to jump clear of the rubble as he came down, and then William, who took over from Rossman, he was killed instantly. So the reality is this: Rossman is an artist. This is a picture picture of him in 2012 at the age of 98, and he died in 2012. He is responsible for that picture called The Falling Wall, and it's in the Imperial War Museum's collection. So this is what happened in Chile. This is Rossaman during the war. And he went on, the deal was this: if you joined the fire service, you would not be called up. So a lot of artists went into the fire service, and they were encouraged to do so because the army didn't want them. Because, let's be clear, you're going to load the gun and go, how does this thing work, whilst looking down the barrel. But the reality is, you don't really want artists down on the front, because then they start remembering things and then writing it down or painting it, and that's bad. So that's why in the First World War you saw everybody go out, and an enormous amount of anti-war stuff afterwards, and the horrors of the First World War. Whereas it's a bit more heroic in the Second World War because there's less artists around to do it. But they were hired by the army to do technical drawing. So anytime anybody wanted that something of the enemy is there, I need you to draw that, and we need to know what that is. So that's what he ended up doing. Anyway, the point is, why did this building collapse? This is an original London brick made from London clay. Because of the white cliffs of Dover, there's a lot of chalk in the area, you get a lighter brick. If you see deep red bricks in London, they're imported from elsewhere. You do not. So how do you build a building when you don't have a canal, a railway system, cars, trucks, and the only thing you have is a horse? What you do is you scoop up all the soil, put it into a big mound, get a load of poor people with little boxes, bash out little bricks, then you make a big cathedral of wet bricks, shove wood in everywhere in this cathedral, and then set it on fire. Don't just go straight across the north. What you do is not fired in a kiln, it's fired in the open air. It causes a huge amount of pollution, it eventually gets banned because of that, but basically these bricks are not great because they're full of air holes. So at 1,000 degrees centigrade, guess what happens to the air inside the brick as it's expanding?
It explodes.
It explodes. So firefighters today can hear the popping and they can vacate the building. These guys are in an environment where there's flames roaring out of every window and high explosives going all around them. 16 firefighters lose their lives. 5 are killed by collapsing walls just like this, simply because they can't hear the popping sound. So this is the last time you're going to see the city of London as it was. Once we go around the corner, we'll see modern buildings. From this way.
When was this
Sort of, I think, Statue of Liberty might on one of them as well. Yeah. There you go. That was nerdy, wasn't it? Yeah, sorry about that. Anyway, here we go. Here's a nice picture of London after the air raid, but this is many, many months afterwards. So what's actually going on in this image is they're demolishing all the warehousing. So this is warehousing, burnt out, being demolished, and the business owners are getting compensated by the government. So if this is a psychological attack on the nation, burning down warehouses and offices is not psychologically damaging anyone. However, note the building that isn't demolished. That is St. Nicholas Cole's Abbey. Go down the street there, take the third right, you will be at the Abbey. And it is a small, lovely, fully restored church and coffee shop. Because you've got to get them in. Yeah. So here's the deal. This is the psychological damage, is the church, not the warehouse. The warehouse is the fuel to cause the damage. So this is what they're doing. It is a recreation of the Great Fire of London of 1666, except deliberately. Now the big question is, that there is St. Paul's School for Choir Boys. That is now a youth hostel because they vacated the building in 1960. The reason it's a youth hostel is because that is preserved as a schoolhouse with school layout, and all the classrooms are still there. But now you put beds into it, you've got dorms, you've got a business that can operate out of a schoolhouse. The children's graffiti, Victorian children's graffiti carved into the wooden paneling, is protected by the government. And that's why you can't trust children with anything. So the big question then is, what were they using to cause this level of destruction? So, the Luftwaffe flew planes overhead and dropped thousands of these out of the airplanes. This is the firebomb or the incendiary bomb. I mentioned that over 100,000 bombs were dropped into this over 4.5 hours earlier. That's what makes up the numbers. It's only 1 kilo, 2 pounds in weight. Steel fin, magnesium casing, stuffed with white phosphorus. Put into a barrel. The barrel has a fin. When it's dropped out of the airplane, the fin forces the barrel to spin. Centrifugal forces open up side hatches, and then these things are shot out of the side hatches over a wider area. It takes 35 seconds for a bomb to leave an airplane and hit the ground from about 2-3 miles in the sky.
35 seconds?
35.
35.
Yeah, half a minute. So there's plenty of time for the process to be completed and everything falling down. When this hits the ground, it hits silently. Most bombs whistle. The whistling is to terrorize everybody below. And the only time you know you've survived that bomb is when there's silence and you're still alive. So it's terror that the whistling's for. These don't do that. They just hit the ground and they go plink. And that is a percussion cap, and that breaks a seal, which allows air to react with the phosphorus. Now flames come shooting out just like a flare, but magnesium will ignite at 900 degrees centigrade and burn at 1500 degrees centigrade, and steel melts at 1400 degrees centigrade, so it's beyond the melting point of steel. Anything around that area is going to burn, and that's what they're going to use to set fire to everything here. So how are they going to do it? 4:30 in northern France, 10 Heinkel HE-111s with 1,000 in each aeroplane. That's 10,000 in total. Take off. And these guys are going to be flying blind. They cannot make a mistake because they have to hit the target spot on. They are the Pathfinder mission. So they're the guys flying in blind. And when they're done, they're going to leave a big orange spot on the horizon for every other pilot to follow after that. So to make sure that these guys don't miss, is the first electronically navigated air raid. So how do they do it? Very simple. Well, it's not that simple, but 2 transmitters, 60 miles apart on the coast of France. One of them's going beep, beep, beep. The other one's going boop, boop. Slightly different tone. As the beam goes across the sky, it crosses over wherever you want, but on this occasion, Mitcham, and Mitcham is exactly south of us. It's on the outskirts of London today, but a village in the middle of nowhere. They've worked out their flight plan from Mitcham to here, which is the bombing run. They just need to get to the beginning of the flight plan. So to do that, you're listening to the beam, and it's going beep, 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 beep. And as long as it's getting faster, you know that triangle's getting closer to the airplane, which means you're going in the right direction. So it's going beep, 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 beep. And when they meet, they're off sequence, and they go wee, 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 as they are now going at the same time over you. You now know where you are. You're in Mitcham. Turn your plane north, set your airspeed, set your stopwatch, just doing mathematics after this, and then you just fly straight in, and at 6 p.m, an hour and a half after takeoff, they drop 10,000 incendiaries right on this location. So everything from up there, all the way through the Fleet Street, started to erupt into flames, and that's it, nailed. They have now put a big orange spot on the target. They're here to destroy one building. What is the name of that building? One building is the target. All of this is to destroy one significant, break the spirit of Londoners.
Number 10 Downing.
Not quite. That's full of, that's full of politicians.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not gonna. Anyone? I did leave a clue earlier. What was the significant building that they?
Some church.
Exactly. Think of the biggest. St. Paul's Cathedral. If that's gone, you have broken the spirit of Londoners, and you just walk straight in. Capitulation. And of course, the big question on all your lips is, did they succeed?
I'm going to say no. Sorry.
Do you know what a spoiler is?
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, because I was going to do a reveal.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, and it was
Can we back up?
Yeah, and we were going to like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Or have a lovely moment.
Oh, I see.
But
Yeah.
you ruined it for me.
Well, that's me.
Come on. Don't worry, don't worry. I am a professionally trained actor. I think I can act my way out of this. Okay, don't worry. Watch this. Watch. Here we go.
There you go.
Isn't that beautiful? Okay, now, chaps, that is not the original building. So what we have here is we have the original St. Paul's Cathedral. So as you can see, it's slightly different, Gothic in style. This is a very nice picture of this cathedral. By the time that in 1666, when the Great Fire consumed this building, the steeple had long gone. It was a little stubby one. But the reality is, all the buildings surrounding are wattle and daub, which means they're all wooden buildings with plaster stuck in between all the wooden bits. Some of these buildings had thatched roofs in the middle of London. So when the Great Fire of London took over, all of this was erupted into a firestorm. The heat was so great that once you get above 450 degrees centigrade, you're now melting the lead roof. It rains down as liquid lead, and everything inside burns as it's all wooden inside. So this is left as a smouldering ruin, and everybody decides we need to rebuild. So they decided they're going to get rid of this Gothic style of architecture completely. We're not going with that. We're going with something modern, slick. So they went Roman. Christopher Wren, who designed that cathedral, also got the contract for 52 parish churches. Nice. Never went to Italy in his life. And he designed everything in classical architecture, but when it came to the cathedral, he decided to go with Baroque styling. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Baroque, it's very simple: fruit and vegetables and fat babies. If you look here at the top of this pillar here, this is the old deanery of St. Paul's Cathedral. This is where the priests live, where basically the offices. You can see on top of the gate here, we have a lovely ornament. That is a pineapple. Coming in from the New World, the crown, the green thing on top, had already withered away. So Christopher Wren didn't know that there was a crown, and he put another pineapple up on top of the cathedral. In fact, he put pineapples everywhere. What do you think was the most expensive fruit in the market at the time?
Pineapple?
Yeah, pineapples. I mean, they were so expensive, people would show off walking down Bond Street with a pineapple in their hand, of which they rented for the purpose. See, Louis Vuitton hadn't actually opened a store on Bond Street at that point, so they needed something. Yes, so this is, you're going to see pineapples everywhere now that I've mentioned it. So let's go in. This is the target. It survived. Now the question is, why? Of September 1940. So remember, the first day of the Blitz is the 7th of September 1940. The brains of the operation, I nearly said Cameron McIntosh, the guy who did Les Mis. George Cameron Wiley, he's a sapper. He's an engineer in the army. So he steps out of the other side of the van, and the reason they're doing this is because that is a hole in the ground just over there. And a 1,000 kilogram bomb fell out of the sky, landed into the hole, went 27 feet down into the ground, and failed to explode. So, these two boys got their shovels and started digging down 27 feet to the bomb over a period of 4 days. And on the 12th of September 1940, successfully deactivated the bomb and raised it out of its hole and put it onto their truck, drove out to East London, found a marsh, and detonated the bomb in the marsh. It left a 100-foot crater in the marsh. They rewarded George medals for bravery as a result of their actions on that day. But I just want you to think about what they had to do. That bomb was live, and they had to do 4 days of digging, and at any moment it could go off, and they had to stop all the traffic because any vibrations could have set the bomb off. Now, why am I telling you this? This was day 2 of the Blitz, and they tried to drop a 1,000 kilogram bomb into the middle of the cathedral. They're here to destroy the building. There is no deal that each warring party is protecting each other's cultural icons. That never occurred. They are trying to take this out from day 1. Here's another bomb that successfully detonated on the roof, disintegrating the roof, and it all fell down and landed on a pile on the high altar. This one is a 500 pound bomb, so this is a big one. But what it does is it comes through the roof, but it detonates midair. And the shockwave pushes the floor down. It also blows the top out of the roof, but it's in the north transept. So you walk down the church, turn left, you're in the north transept. The shockwave moves straight across to the south transept, blowing all the glass out onto the street, and the dome, which is also taking the brunt of this blast, is shoved in a southerly direction several centimeters out of its original alignment. The entire dome today is out of alignment because of the shockwave of that bomb. The point I'm trying to make here, conventional bombs dropping in this area to try and destroy this building is not working. So why not just go back to the Great Fire of London of 1666, set fire to absolutely everything, and use the firestorm to melt the lead roof and destroy this building, and everybody will be sad in the morning. So there is an image of St. Paul's Cathedral before the air raid, and all of these buildings are going to be used as the fuel to destroy that, and then Hitler will win the war. Let's see what Hitler achieved. Ta-da! Now, there's a problem. The entire city of London is destroyed, but the cathedral is fine. Oopsies! Now everybody in London is going, haha, you bloody missed. It's having the exact opposite effect on Londoners. They're feeling quite rejoiceful. The hand of God came down and protected the building. Now, I want to be absolutely clear, especially to the younger generation, there were no witnesses to any large hands coming out of the sky protecting the building, okay? So what had actually happened is Walter Matthews, who's the Dean of St. Paul's Cathedral, he's the guy in charge of the building, in World War I, bombers came over and bombed London in the latter half of World War. Big biplanes, stupid things. They were very slow, about a max speed of about 70 miles an hour. It was a terrorism thing. But they'd already put together a team of people to keep an eye on the cathedral in case any bombs and bomblets fell down. So that team was reinstated. It ended up being over 300 people, 200 of which are City of London architects. So they all understood this building inside out, and their job was every night to be up on the roof and pick up an incendiary if it lands on the lead roof and dispose of it. So they had buckets of sand all over the place to deal with incendiary bombs. If you put water onto phosphorus, it explodes. So sand is what you're covering it with. However, on the 29th of December, they discovered their policy of using buckets of sand to deal with incendiaries landing on the lead roof was not going to be good enough, because no sooner as you picked one up, there was another one and another one and another one, and that was no longer efficient. So, if you were standing here on this lovely stone, which does not burn, they were kicking them off the gullies and sending them down here where they could do no further damage. The point is, protect the lead, because under the lead is the wood, and that's the bit that's going to burn. However, it doesn't really matter, because if the air temperature gets to 450 degrees centigrade, the lead will melt, they will melt, everything's going to melt. So, that picture is taken on the night from just over there. You can see the fires all around the cathedral. You have to keep the air temperature below the melting point of lead. So at 7:30, Winston Churchill, standing on top of Downing Street, witnessing the second air raid roar in with 30 bombers targeting St. Paul's Cathedral, he knew exactly what to do, and that was to order the fire service to protect St. Paul's at all costs. The City of London is now officially abandoned, and that's the fire service, the limited resource that they have, focusing on this building. Why does he know this? 6 weeks earlier, Coventry is systematically razed to the ground. Cathedrals, churches, the whole lot. Winston Churchill had psychological reports coming in, and he had to go down there to see what was going on with the king, and realize the danger psychologically of losing the cathedral. So as a result, these guys are going to pour water into these buildings, keep the air temperature let down, and save the building. One problem: the Luftwaffe successfully cut their water supply. Yeah. Dun, dun, dun. What I'm going to do is going to just take you to a nice little display that they put up about 2 weeks ago. I'm just going to walk through, and I just want to point out one little thing, but have a look at the pictures as you're passing through. And these are images of the watch, the people who were looking after this. One of the things to note is, look at the age of everyone. They're all old fogies, and men and women, elderly, not doing service. So they've got a nice job here at the cathedral, looking after the needs of the cathedral. All of this is results of shrapnel damage.